Hello world, this is Jeffrey, JGB146 Blake for Hoopa Hideout, and I'm coming to you today with a bit of a different video. Today we're going to review one of my students as they play through a short game of Roaring Moon, and we're going to just see if we can spot anything that they could have done differently, maybe ways to improve. And without further ado, we'll get into it. My student is playing Roaring Moon with the Dunsparce, so it's 4 copies of Baby Roaring Moon, 3 copies of the EX, and then a 3/3 line of the Dunsparce with Radiant Greninja as the only other Pokemon in the deck. And the rest of the list you can see down in the doobly-doo in the description. So we'll go ahead and start things off here. Looks like we are starting Roaring Moon, which is fine. Dunsparce is the best starter just because he has free retreat, but that's only if you have a good enough hand with him. Now, I guess maybe Roaring Moon is the best starter, and that if all you get is Dunsparce, you're not going to be able to attack. But if you only have Roaring Moon out, there's still times you can attack and do well. So I guess this is good. But the rest of our hand is pretty junky. We are going to need to make a lot happen in order to make this starting hand work out optimally. And that's just because ultimately we want Sada's to be able to get multiple energy attached so we can get that turn 1 attack. But we'll get there when we get there. So before we get to that, let's see what our opponent is coming at us with. And, okay, they flip over a Charmander, so we're going to be playing against Charizard EX. We see a Buddy Puffin. We'll find out it is the Pidgeot build. So they get a Pidgey and a second Charmander. And then my student pops up the history. I'm not sure what exactly he was looking for there, but turn was over before he finished looking. In any case, the one thing that our opponent did after, get that down there and then I'll pause. The one thing our opponent did after playing the Buddy Puffin was to attach an energy and then pass. So we top deck Ancient Booster Energy Capsule, and it's a stack. We basically have these cards on the screen as well as an Explorer's Guidance that's off the screen. So we want to play Sada if we can. We don't have Sada. We want to try to get to it. The only ways that can happen are with Trekking Shoes, or if we can make something happen with the rest of the cards. That's probably going to mean that we need to use the Nest Ball to help with that search, if possible. So our student plays Nest Ball and gets Radiant Greninja. As you could have seen, I was trying to catch the pause there and I just didn't quite time it right. But there's also Dunsparce's, more Moons, and the EX. Those are all options that we could have got with the Nest Ball, but Greninja is definitely the best option because we can draw extra cards with his Concealed Cards ability, and as we said, we need to. There are situations where that might not be the case. You might want something else, but certainly not with this hand. So now the good question, the next thing that we want to talk about is sequencing. So we want to get to Sada. We want to be able to play Professor Sada's Vitality to get multiple energy in play. And we're going to use Concealed Cards to draw toward that, but we don't want to do it right away. The reason for that is, right now, there's a certain number of cards in our deck that are not Professor Sada. And we want to shrink that number. So we want to play the Earthen Vessel, probably go ahead and discard an energy, and then from that we'll pull out 2 more energy cards from the deck. That makes it more likely that we get to our Professor Sada by removing some of the cards that are not Professor Sada, right? If at the extreme, if you're going to draw 2 cards and you're looking at a 5-card deck with 4 Sadas in it, right? You know 100% of the time you're going to get there. If you've got a 6-card deck, you'll miss occasionally. Sometimes, every once in a while, you'll draw those 2 other cards. So, you know, every time you add more cards in, by the time you have an 8-card deck, you're much more likely to miss than with a 6-card deck. And when the extreme backs off a little bit and we've got a 40-card deck, it's still more likely for us to get to Sada when we have a 38-card deck than a 40-card deck, etc. So we want to play the Earthen Vessel to get 2 energies out of the deck so that we can up our chances of drawing into Sada and any other non-energy card. But our student goes ahead and he actually concealed cards right away. So that was a little mistake. It's a common mistake, But again, we want to thin first to improve our odds of getting the cards we want. Now, the Roaring Moon and the Dark Patch are both fine cards for us. They're just not the ones we wanted. And obviously we weren't going to get rid of either of these with the Earthen Vessel. But still, thinning makes us more likely to not get energy, which is ultimately meaning that we're more likely to get what we want. Okay, so from here, our student chooses to go ahead and play Trekking Shoes, again, without playing the Earthen Vessel. So we do hit an energy this time, and maybe that energy wouldn't have been there. Maybe we would have gotten whatever comes after the energy, and then a Sada after that. Or maybe what we get after the energy is a Sada, but if this was any card other than energy, that's better for us. So again, playing the Earthen Vessel would have been better. We get a Roaring Moon out of the deal. We would have discarded that second Roaring Moon and had one extra chance to get to that Professor Sada. But again, higher chance of that extra card being Sada because we would have removed 2 other cards from the deck. Now then, it looks like my student is attaching energy to the active. It's too early to do that. You should not be attaching yet. Oh, he doesn't attach, but then he attaches the tool, and then he does attach the energy. Okay, so let's talk about this real quick. I know we're harping a lot on this first turn and the sequencing and stuff, but that's basically what this video is about, is talking about different key points for sequencing. So one is you want to maximize the things that you do. You want to do in an order that maximizes the chances of hitting the cards you want to hit and minimizes the chances of hitting other cards. So that's where the Earthen Vessel comes into play. That's where a lot of other things that you can do that just make little tiny improvements on your chances come into play, right? The other big overarching concept about sequencing that applies to every deck in different ways is that you want to save your decisions for the very last time that you can make that decision. So what do I mean by this? Well, we just attached a tool and an energy from our hand. We cannot change that decision yet. Like there's no going back. If we end up for some reason wanting the tool attached elsewhere or the energy attached elsewhere, we're out of luck. Now, is it possible that that's where we want them? Sure. But is it likely? Actually, yes, it is. It's very likely that we want stuff on the active. However, is it guaranteed that that's what we want to do? No, because we don't have all the information about the deck yet, about our hand. Why don't we have all the information? Because we still have Explorer's Guidance to play. We're going to have to play a supporter. I mean, we want to play a supporter. We're going to have to play the Guidance. And so we're going to get new information when we play Explorer's Guidance. He's going to show us some more cards, and we're going to find out, oh, hey, we could do other things. Those other things might mean that we have a way to get a benched Roaring Moon out, or, I don't know, a Roaring Moon EX that's somehow going to win things. There's all kinds of things that we could uncover with looking at the next 6 cards and choosing the best 2. But my point is just that we want to delay those decisions that we can only make once until the last point of the turn where we make them. So make it a habit for the very last thing you do to be attaching an energy, attaching tools. Those should be the last thing you do before you end your turn or before you play a supporter that shuffles your hand, right? If you're going to shuffle your hand, you're going to have to attach the things that are in your hand that you want attached with as much information as you have before shuffling the cards away. But up until the point that you're going to send the cards away, wait until you've uncovered everything else you can. All right. So now we'll see. He goes ahead and he does bench a Roaring Moon from those 2. That's fine. And then he plays the Dark Patch. Now, the Dark Patch here is even more problematic for a couple of reasons. One, Dark Patch is a really big deal for getting Roaring Moon EX established, because the only way to do it in one turn, the only way to do it when you bench him, is to go bench, attach energy from hand, play Sada, play Dark Patch. If you are out of Dark Patches, you cannot get your Roaring Moon EX powered up in one turn. So we want to save those until, not just until the end of the turn, we want to save them for a turn where it's going to be necessary for us to achieve what we want. Right now, we don't know that attaching to that Roaring Moon is going to make any difference whatsoever. Our opponent can't really take a knockout on the active unless they get the right combination of things that include the Lost Vacuum to get rid of the tool. They can't just become Charizard and take a knockout on the active Roaring Moon. So we may be attacking with the active next turn, or we may want to attack with a Roaring Moon EX next turn. So right now, we don't want to play the Dark Patch yet. Save it. And then we're going to play the Explorer's Guidance. So here, I have to say, my student got really unlucky. All 6 of these cards are cards that we want. I could see letting go without too much trouble of either the Nest Ball or the Artisan, but losing both is kind of tough. We want the Dudunsparce. Letting go of it is kind of okay, though. But having it in combination with one of these 2 things would be great. We obviously want our Ace Spec. Obviously want a Dark Patch. And we only play 1 Super Rod to recover energy, so energy and Pokemon. So we want that too. Note that we could choose to get rid of this Dark Patch and have it not affect anything if we had delayed some of our decisions previously. So that's an impact that we're feeling now, where we have more of a need for this Dark Patch because we already played the one that's in our hand and we've already attached for turn. If we hadn't done those 2 things, we wouldn't need this Dark Patch as much. So, as played, I kind of like what I think I end up going for. I still want the knockout, so I think I go Dark Patch, Prime Catcher, and then knock out the Pidgey. Because that's going to disrupt our opponent the most. Let's see what my student does. He's looking at Artisan. And Prime Catcher? Okay. Oh, actually, Artisan and Prime Catcher would work if we hadn't used the Dark Patch, we could Prime Catcher up the Pidgey and then play the Dark Patch in hand, and we'd get the Artisan to have a Dunsparce as well. So that would have worked pretty well if we hadn't already played the Dark Patch or the Energy, either one. But as is, we can't really make that play. We Prime Catcher, get a Dunsparce, and free retreat on the Dunsparce means we get our attacker. But we can't really make that play. So yeah, we do have to do the Dark Patch, which is what my student did as well. So I like the choice there. Good job. That was the best of what we had. Dark Patch does let us take a KO. Now, if we hadn't attached the tool because we're taking a KO, we know that the tool is going to be meaningless and we could have discarded it with the Earthen Vessel. But again, that's sort of a null point. My student chooses to go after the unenergized Charmander. The reason that I would go after the Pidgey instead is that the Pidgey represents our opponent getting a card of their choice every single turn. The Charmander is just a backup attacker for the one that already has energy on it. So getting rid of their consistency, making it harder for them to continuously get cards of their choice, is definitely something we're interested in doing. So I like that play a lot better than just taking out an energized Charmander. We're not disrupting much. We're just getting a prize here. Nest Ball is a fine prize to get. Student reviews the discard there, which is a good habit. And we see Arven from our opponent. So they're probably going to get... Okay, so they got Raricane. They're probably going to go into Pidgeotto. No, they're going to just go straight into Charizard. I think that's a mistake from our opponent. Like, they don't need the Defiance Band. Well, maybe they had no way to get to the Pidgeot. No, they had Ultra Ball. Okay, I don't know what the heck was going on there, but that was really bad. They definitely should have Ultra Balled for the Pidgeot, and then gotten another rare candy for the Charizard. Instead, they're Ultra Balling, they're getting a Pidgeotto, and now they have no cards in hand. They're just going to get the one prize. That's it. This opponent has messed things up too, but that's beside the point. They did us a favor playing poorly this time. So, what are we looking at now? Okay. So, because we've taken a knockout, from here on, the tool cards are meaningless and can and should be discarded as fodder for Earthen Vessel. So that's fine. Getting a Dunsparce there, totally good too. I like the Earthen Vessel and then the play with concealed cards. That's all perfect. Artisan, getting another Dunsparce, sure. And then we're going to bench our next attacker. That's all fine. All of this is good. And yeah, all we can do is Vengeance. Fledging. So the only difference here is that we would have had one more card in the discard from using from discarding it with the energy tool. So we have been doing 10 more damage. It wouldn't really be that meaningful, but it is 10 less damage that we have to reach to achieve knockout later. We didn't play a supporter though. We could have made an interesting play by, instead of attaching the second energy, using Penny to pick up Greninja and then drawing 2 more cards with the other energy. I know that it seems weird and I don't know that it's optimal, but that 110 damage, while it's meaningful in setting up a 2-hit KO, I think digging further in the deck is more meaningful for us right now. Because what are we doing next turn? They're gonna take a knockout, and then we're just kind of dead in the water. So I think moving ourselves forward in any way possible would actually have been a little bit better, even if it means we don't get to attack, just because we need to draw cards. Oh, our opponent is using Artisan to get another Charmander. Okay, we don't care. And then benching a Pidgey. Okay. And then, yeah, they can't do anything else because they starved themselves of cards. This would have looked a lot different if they had had a Pidgeot EX. But, alright. So here, the answer is always to promote a free retreater if you have one. Unless you have more information than I do. And, okay, let's back up a second. We have just Penny in hand now. If we had, just playing devil's advocate, if we had used Penny last turn and done the concealed card things, at the very least, we would have a card that we could discard. Like, we'd have 2 cards that and one of them we could discard with the Ultra Ball that we top deck. So we'd be able to get to Dudunsparce now to draw further. Minor difference from last turn, and we would have missed an attack, probably, but it could play out as very important here, because drawing 3 more cards, one of them could have been Sada, and we could have started going, whereas we can't really do anything right now. Artisan for another Dunsparce, perfectly good. I agree with obviously not playing the Penny now, because it's not doing anything. It's not resetting Greninja, it's not achieving anything. And our opponent gets Pidgeot now. So now we're in a bit of hurt, because they are going to be able to gust up our only Roaring Moon, our only attacker, and that's going to cause us some problems. They play Artisan, get a Moltres. The Moltres basically can snipe a 120 and has free retreat with a single energy on it. I don't know why our opponent even put that down, because honestly, it's going to be a liability for them more than anything. And okay, we top deck a Counter Catcher, which is not meaningless, but close. And choosing which one to evolve, it doesn't matter. As long as we're not retreating, it doesn't matter. I would probably have done it onto a bench just so we don't have to shuffle as many cards around, but now, okay, whoops. Could have made a different play. Again, do we want to draw into another Dunsparce? No. So after using the first Dunsparce, we've put one of these guys back in deck, and Artisan has not been played. So we can play it before we draw with the second one in order to make it impossible for us to draw into a Dunsparce again off of that draw. Now, it didn't matter, it didn't happen, but it's still a meaningful difference. Go ahead, promote Dunsparce again. We're going to Artisan and get it now, but that just should have happened one card sooner. And then, all right, we pass. We should not pass here, not yet. What we should do is play Earthen Vessel. There's at least one or possibly two energy cards left in deck. I think two, if I did the math right. So we can discard the Ancient Booster Energy Capsule. As we've said, this tool is basically meaningless at this point, and especially for the desperation level that we're at, we can discard it. It's not going to matter. So we should discard it, get 2 more energy, then we can conceal cards. One of the energy goes into the discard, one stays here. If we get away then to get to Roaring Moon EX, we have a Dark Patch. We can play the Dark Patch, play the Sada, and attach for turn. Then we can retreat into the Roaring Moon. Then we can use the normal attack, Calamity Storm, discard the Stadium, and take 2 prizes while still having full health, which then argues the point that maybe having the tool would have been better, because then they wouldn't be able to take a knockout no matter what. But I don't think I have the foresight to recognize that and say that discarding boss was better. Ultimately, having played through all of the scenarios of what could happen, maybe we do choose with Earthen Vessel to discard boss instead. But if we hadn't played through all of that scenario, like either option is better, and then it lets us draw 2 more cards and potentially start shifting gears. So that was kind of a big mistake to just pass here, because the game isn't lost at this point. It's lost if the next 2 cards are meaningless cards, but we'll be thinning by 2 cards, so we're not drawing into a deck of 21. We're drawing into a deck of 19. We're getting 2 more cards out of that deck. It's very possible that we can get something that lets us go forward and even win from this point if our opponent stumbles at all. Note that they've been pretty starved too. They can get 1 card that they want, but to even evolve, they're going to have to get 2. Plus, they've got some energy in the discard. They may not have enough energy to attack with this Charmander if it evolves into a Charizard. And they don't have enough cards to try to get it back. Like to try to... Their Pidgeot EX can only get 1 card. So they can't get Rare Candy, Charizard, and Super Rod. Like, they'd have to have a perfect combination for things to work out. So we might be able to actually win from here, even. But because we pass, now our opponent gets to take another knockout. They'll be down to 2 prizes, and all they have to do is get to those 2 prizes. So they get an Ultra Ball and a meaningless card. Quick search will get, who knows, my guess is Candy. And then we see Rare Candy Charizard. I don't know what they were Ultra Balling for then. And then we concede. So at the very end there, we can see right as we concede, they put the Charizard back down without attaching any energy. Like, you can kind of see it grayed out here. I don't know why this popped up, but that Charizard went back down without any energy on it. So they're out of energy, meaning that we really shouldn't have conceded, because we might win just from what's on board. It's going to take them multiple turns to be able to attack with that Charizard. Yeah, so this was not even lost at this point. If it was a regional scooping at this point, sure. But in a best of 1 event, we can still keep going. All we need to do is hit 1 Roaring Moon off of the next 5 cards, if we consider the 2 energy we'll get with the energy vessel as, 2 of the 5. We just need to hit 1 Roaring Moon off of the next 3. And then we're like locked in for potentially winning. Obviously that's not how it happened, but it's possible that we could still win even after they take this knockout because they didn't have any energy left. Anyway, that's it. That's the end of the review. Anyway, that's it. That's the end of the review. Hopefully this is helpful to my student and to all of you out there. I think that we've really hammered in some of the concepts that we need to consider regarding sequencing and looking for those random extra outs and extra chances that are there sometimes, even when we don't immediately see them. Always try to think about what options there still are, because we maybe could have still won here. Obviously, if you have any questions about any of this, please ask down below. I would love to respond to anything and everything. With that, I'm Jeffrey, JGB146, and thank you for watching.